All right, so through all of this, questions. Fine. Dialogue is best to hammer everything out. So if you have a question on something, just literally just stop and ask, or stop me and ask. It's fine. I love coaching. I take coaching very seriously. It's what I do for a living. So it's my favorite thing. I think it's one of the most important jobs in the world. So to have other people that want to coach is awesome. It's great. So what I want to start with, this will probably be the most boring one and non-real specific for practices, but it's more of a foundation of kind of where are our kids and what are they doing, what should they be doing, and stuff like that, and just getting the foundations to build on with the next three after this. So starting out with youth development, and in this whole thing, none of it is geared 100%. I mean, it's not coaching for baseball. It's not coaching for this or coaching for that. It's just coaching, and then you as coaches take that into apply that where you need to. So I mean, it can be used for everything. You know, I don't want to tell you how to coach baseball or how you should coach it. I don't want any part of coaching baseball. So I just want to help you be better coaches in general. So
What do you coach?
I'm a strength and conditioning coach.
Okay.
So my background is youth. I'm certified with the International Youth Conditioning Association in youth fitness and as well as strength, speed and agility. So I work with kids from 7 all the way through high school. And I'm a strength coach every day, all day. And in the summer it's really busy with strength and conditioning. So I played football. I coached football with Tina's brother in Minnesota. That was fun. I miss actually coaching a specific sport or a specific position, but that's okay. So with youth development, one thing that needs to get understood, you know, in general, is that children are not just smaller adults. They don't have the same body mechanics. They don't have the same neural control. They don't have the same muscular structure. They haven't, more than likely, the kids that we're going to encounter, they haven't hit puberty yet. So you know, they're really all over the place. So you can't train them or teach them like you do adults, just smaller versions of it, because they don't have the capacity to do that. Like I said, their nervous system, they're just starting to get that down, and it takes time to develop. The best way for that to happen is just repetition. But with repetition, if it's done incorrectly, you're teaching that nervous system to do something wrong a lot of the time, so then you kind of have to retrain that. So, you know, you have to put down a good road. If you put down the road like County Road A in Fredonia and use that as your neural system, awful. So make sure it's a good paved kind of highway. And the nervous system, it is the base for most part of the rest of their lives. You know, I train adults every day as well. You can definitely tell the adults that had some type, it didn't even have to be an athletic background, but just was active when they were younger compared to the ones that don't, just because they can't comprehend how to move their body. So literally helping them now will help them the rest of their life as far as with their nervous system and how to move. So that's what it does. You know, teaching your nervous system to go from an impulse. So your brain you want to do something. It has to start in your brain, and then it has to go somewhere. It has to go to the muscle. Then the muscle has to fire with other muscles to communicate with each other to get the desired action. And then from that action, was it the right action or not? If it was close, then your body makes those small different adjustments to make it a better action or a more desirable outcome. And if it was right, it knows it was right, and then it just wants to keep doing that, you know, the whole time. So making sure that that's sound and set. Adults, we have a lot of that already. They don't. So then also with the muscular system, the muscular and neural system are all tied together. You know, boys don't get muscle until after they hit puberty. So they're just not there yet. If they're getting stronger, it's because of that neural system. So they're not really gaining strength, they're gaining a neurological communication system that is working for them. So, having that ability to, jump higher or run faster, it's all neurological. At our kids' age, it's not muscular. So they don't have that either. So doing things that require more muscular activation doesn't really do a whole lot for the kids that we'll be working with for that, just because they're not going to develop muscle. And then the athletic experience. They probably haven't had any experience or much experience compared to, our 30, 40 years of being on this earth. They've had 8, 12, however many years doing things. And, like with Caden, this is his third year playing baseball. His experience in baseball is almost next to nothing. So, they don't have that. So to have them do something, and expect that out of them because, well, Johnny from college does this, you should be able to do it too. Well, he's in college for a reason. He's playing baseball in college because he's good. So that's kind of just a small background on youth kind of development and training. The biggest thing that I want to kind of get across is a long-term athletic development system. So for that, we search for improvement rather than immediate success. So it kind of goes against some of a lot of other coaches' thinking as far as, winning, being the best 12-year-old out there, and skipping some of these other steps. It allows for the motivation of the individual to improve rather than to succeed. So just taking those small steps towards improvement and becoming a better athlete rather than the best athlete, but you're essentially an upside-down pyramid of, hey, you're really great, but you have no foundation or fundamental skills, you'll crash. And it won't take long, and more than likely it'll be an injury of some kind, whether it's a shoulder, whether it's an elbow, whether it's a knee, a hip dysfunction. It'll limit your career, and it could limit just your life. I mean, I know 2 high school kids right now that I work with that have had labrum tear surgery. They're 16 years old, and they tore their labrums already, just because of not doing things properly. So it is a real deal. It happens. And then you keep away from the pressure of the kids to have, their only goal in sport is to win. I think is kind of backwards. So by having that long-term development, you're giving them the notion to succeed and to have fun and to do well together for a prolonged time. Winning is fun. Yeah, it is great. It's gravy. Yeah, it's not the potatoes. It's just a little bit of extra stuff. And a lot of times, what that does is it overshadows what's likely best for that athlete for the rest of their time. You can have immediate success with them, but then compromise what they're going to be doing 2 or 3 years down the road because they didn't get the skills ahead of time to be better as they get older, because they're going to grow now. Yeah, they're great when they're 10 years old, but they haven't grown yet. And when they grow, if they don't have that stuff kind of down, they're going to get passed up. It's kind of the mentality that I see it a lot at school that I work with is, a lot of kids are good when they're younger, but they don't do anything to become better, and then everybody catches up to them, and then they get forgotten. So yeah. So how do we go about doing that as coaches? One thing we do for the kids then is, and I'll get into kind of the different stages of kids after this, but as coaching and putting stuff together in a developmental coaching process, you have to have a definition stage. So taking 1, 2, or 3 goals that are realistically accomplishable in a certain amount of time. So take your 1 or 2 goals, set those, make sure they're realistic, have a timeline that they need to be done in. So to do that, make sure you also have some smaller goals that you can use to measure with. So if you're trying to get a kid to, play third base, they have to throw to first base. It's a long throw. It wouldn't be prudent to throw them out to third base right away and say, hey, just keep going and throw until you get it to third. How are you going to measure the success of the kid? Okay, so he went all year and he still wasn't able to throw from third to first. Well, did he improve at all? Do you know if he improved at all? where are your measurements? So, have those in. And with younger players, so kind of T-ball, coach pitch, even rookies, and minors as well, a lot of this should be on outcome-based, so outcome-based coaching, whereas, it's not form-based. So outcome-based is much more general. And for T-ball, it's I need you to throw the ball over there. It went over there, doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be pretty. I just need you to throw the ball over there. You did it? Good job. Awesome. Good with that. And then you have the implementation stage. So how are you going to reach your goal? So what steps are you going to take to get to that goal? Whatever it is. When I work with a kid and I want to increase his vertical jump, I have to make sure, what steps am I going to take? Well, it doesn't do him any good just to keep jumping. He's not going to gain anything. So what do I have to do? I have to strength train him. So we have to work on squat, we have to work on glutes, we have to work on core, we have to work on power. So, to increase his vertical jump, 10 inches. I need to do X, Y, and Z so that I can get my goal. And it's taking those steps and doing those. So developing strategies for what you're going to do. With my kid, we're going to do some lunges twice a week. We're going to squat once a week. We're going to work on core 3 times a week. Adding those in there to make a plan for that. And then also too, it depends on, your goal has to be realistic on how much time you're going to spend with them. Do you have enough time to work with them to actually get to that goal in that amount of time or not? If you're going to work with them 1 day a week, that goal is probably going to have to come down a lot. So how much time are they going to be able to devote, on that? And then you should coach script your practices kind of around that goal. So if I wanted to increase my vertical jump on this kid, I'm not going to work on slow movement lifting. It's going to do the opposite for him. I'm not going to go heavy squats with him, only because it's going to shorten him down and it's going to bind him up. So, I have to script it around what do I want him to do. And then the revision stage. So looking at what worked, what didn't work, and refining that. Did this work? Does this way work better than the other way? And working with that and moving on from there and just always developing yourself and your coaching for that. And then any modifications you want to make to ensure that positive action or goal for that. Any questions on that at all? Good. All right. So developmental stages of kids, they're all different. You're not going to have a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old doing the same things because they're developmentally different. So we break them up into the first stage is the movement foundation. So that's between 2 and 5 years old. Obviously, we don't have 2-year-olds, but we have 4 and 5 years old in T-ball. Just 5 or 4 too?
I think we're on
4? Okay, so 4 and 5 years old. It's all T-ball. Motor skills do not happen naturally. Okay? There are a ton of people. There was a high school kid that graduated 2 years ago that could not jump forward with 2 feet and land with 2 feet. Just could not functionally jump 2 feet. He always had to go 1 to 2. So, there's you'll hear a lot of times where, kids are able to walk before they crawl. Well, crawling is a foundational movement and it's quite important for body mechanics. But it doesn't happen naturally. So for those kids, you'll probably see a lot of them that don't really know how to move very well. So we have to develop them so that they can become better later. So with more experience, they'll become better developed. For this group, effort equals success. Always. It doesn't matter what it is. Going back to that ball throw. You threw the ball over there, awesome. I don't even care if it went to the person. I don't care where it went in that general direction. And they had a great time with it. Callie my daughter, she's 5, she can throw something up in the air, watch it fall, and just be giddy, happy. And I give her a high five, and she's great with it. It's something as simple as that. They don't need much. All they need for that is encouragement and motivation and a good job. All the time. It needs to be nurtured. And then modeling with that. So with kids that age, vision is the most influential instructional tool that we have as humans, being able to see something and see how it works and see what you need. So to talk them through something, number one, their attention spans are short. They're not going to get past your fourth word. So showing them how to do it, showing them how to throw a ball and then having them demonstrate it and showing them how to do that. Not, okay, you need to put your arm back, come through with your shoulder, lead, follow through with your hand. Not going to go through to them. So showing them how to do that, they'll get that better. Goals for T-ball, number one is fun. And at this age, number one goal for anything is just to have fun and keep them motivated and keep them encouraged. Working on the gross motor skills, so being able to run, being able to throw, being able to catch, just working on those simple fundamental things for that age. And then the kinesthetics, so body control is a major focus for them. If they can develop that body control, it goes back to that whole neuromusculoskeletal thing of being able to move better later in life. So yeah. Next would be guided discovery. So this is 6 through 9. This is going to be your coach pitch, your rookies, and your minors. So as you will know, there's a wide range of skills during that age, and there's 3 separate leagues for that. So a lot of times with the older kids, some experience may not be the same with all of them. They may not have the same experience at that age. They are able to catch up at this age if they're given the proper instruction to do that. So just because they don't have it doesn't mean they're going to be behind the rest of their lives. At this age, they're still young enough. And a lot of times too, in coach pitching, rookies, they're not really going to know that, hey, that kid is, they might, but that kid is absolutely horrible. They just want to have fun too still. So it's okay, just work with them. So a lot of the positive motivations should still be towards fun. But at this age, you can start identifying where those weaknesses are, deficiencies are, and triage the situation. So, this kid can't throw, can't run very well, his catching's bad, and he can't hit. Kind of pretty good things in baseball that you need to have. Try to work on one of those at a time with him. If you try to work on all of it at once, you're spreading yourself thin, and the margin of not doing things to where they may want it is going to be less. If I'm working with somebody and, if I want to change your diet and I say, all right, so you want to become healthier and you want to lose weight, I need you to eat 10 servings of vegetables a day. I need you to get 100 grams of protein a day. I need you to sleep 8 hours. I need you to exercise 2 hours a week. One of those days needs to be strength training. I need you to also go on some cardiovascular type of exercise. And by the way, you need to take all your processed food out of your house. You're going to look at me and say, it's crazy. And I would say the same thing. It won't happen. It won't stick. So the first thing I would do is, what's the biggest deficiency? A lot of times with that, I'll say, just try to get more vegetables in. We want you at 10. You're getting 3 in right now. Work at 5. When you get to 5, hey, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're there. Good. We got this set. Next. The next biggest deficiency. And then work your way up. A best practices approach doesn't work very well, only because there's so much thrown at you or at them that can't comprehend it. So try to triage it. And then, for these leagues, coach pitch and rookies, that effort equals success is still very, very high. Rookies, there's no scores kept, no wins, losses. Learn the game, learn how to do this better. Refine some of those fundamental skills and develop those so that as you are getting to those older leagues where, hey, we are keeping track of things, they're already developed. You don't have to worry about those. You have to worry about other things. So at this age too, and towards the older, so kind of minors, a little bit in the rookies too, you can start to include some fundamental locomotion patterns, so jumping, skipping, and agility exercises. There's a lot of kids that can't skip. I find it difficult that kids can't skip. But running is a coordinated pattern. skipping is a coordinated pattern. Getting those different things in there helps overall everything. And then also kind of some fundamental or foundational strength exercises too. So squats, lunges, push-ups, pulls. Try to, if we can squeeze those into either warm-ups or some type of activity so that it's not, military training, let's go squat. But, try to engage it and make it fun. So in their warm-up, if they're doing something, work in jumping, work in squatting and holding. Tell them, hey, we're going to warm our legs up. This is how we have to do it. We have to squat. I want you to hold down here. And when you do this, I need you to sit this way. And then, all right, when I say go, everybody's going to jump. And then you're going to go back down and hold. Make it fun for them. Make it a game for them. And disguise it as a game and fun or warm-up. Whatever. It doesn't matter. I still do that with high school kids. They don't know the difference. All the time. I have this game. It's called knee tag. And you get in a circle. And literally, 1 against 1, try to tag a knee. And that's all you do. You keep track. And they're really quick. And I keep the kids moving. When you're done with that, number 1, you're huffing and puffing. Number 2, you're working on foot skills, foot agility. You're trying to get not tagged, so you have to move your feet quick. And number 3, your legs are really tired because you're down here the whole time as you're trying to tag somebody else's knee. So make games into fun and still get the work in.
So at this level, it's more for coordination and mental development for the movement, not the strength.
Correct, yeah. Kids, like I said, until they hit puberty, boys do not develop muscle.
No, what about flexibility? Because I know there's a lot of stiff kids.
Yep,
out
that'll
there
help
that
with
just
that
run
too.
like they're stiff, and that's all part of it too.
Yep. So, and that goes along with that coordination pattern too, or being, coordinated with that, and having that rhythm is, that's what it does, and that's what it helps with. So, body mechanics of a lunge, having them just step backwards and figuring out where their body is. They may not be in that exact position, in a game or in practice or anything, but it doesn't matter because their body has to know where it is out in space. So that's the whole kinesthetics thing of, I have to go get this ball. I know my feet are going to be right here if I can jump over here. They don't have to think about that then, it just happens.
But in the long and short, if I'm teaching a pitcher to make the correct step forward, doing a skipping drill or something could actually positively help that because it's just foot coordination and getting that foot to go where they want it versus where it's naturally going differently.
Yep.
So even though it's totally unrelated, it's actually related.
Absolutely, yeah. And all of that goes together. It's literally just the foundation of movement. Movement is the core of everything. As far as there's movement, and then you have strength and power, you have speed and agility, and you have flexibility and mobility. All of that comes into being able to move better. If you can move better from these other areas, everything will be positively impacted without having to specifically do this. It's just becoming a better overall athlete. If you have a person down here and a person here, and or being able to kind of transition from sport to sport, if you can make this person a better overall athlete, just in general of being able to know where your body is, being able to take loads from running, or being able to stop quickly or move fast, that's where they have the coaches to do that refining of the skill to, I have a really good athlete here, you can do anything you want with them. They'll know how to squat, and there's people that I work with that are adults that they were good athletes when they were younger, and I'll tell them to go down to a squat, and they may come, here or whatever, but then I can tell them, shoulders, I need you to put your shoulders up and your hips back more. And they'll know, oh, I gotta sit here now. And it's instant. They'll know exactly where their body needs to go just by having you tell them that, just because of their athletic background. There's others that I will literally have to physically move into position because they can't figure out where their body is. And all of that stuff stems from being younger. I mean, when I was 10, 11 years old, I was cutting down 15-foot trees in my backyard and walking them through. It was a pine plantation. So I had to maneuver these through to build a fort. That was my weight training. I was just building forts though. But when I got older and I was ready to squat, my body knew exactly what I had to do just because of the past experiences that I had. Not weight training, but just being a kid. So yeah, at this age, particularly the minors, for sure, And you can even get into, implementing a little bit into the rookies with that, but those foundation skills and those base movements.
So it might be moving ahead a little bit, but you take 10 kids. You give 10 kids one drill, 8 of the kids do it perfect, 2 of the kids just can't get it.
Yeah, and
you keep shoving 10 kids at the same drill to try to get these last 2. I mean, you don't want to leave those last 2 behind, but you're boring the daylights out of the first 8.
Nope, and that's where we'll get into that more in methodology and skill in the next couple.
Okay.
But the one thing you need to avoid is training everybody the same all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have smaller pods and smaller groups, and just with that triage, if there's a kid that, hey, at this level he can bat right where I need him to, but his fielding's not great, why would I work at him with batting more? Why not work at him with fielding more? And there's a kid that, hey, he's got this fielding and throwing down, but he can't bat. Same thing. Shove him over to batting more. That's why you have assistant coaches. So, you're not the only one. I need you to help, these kids work with. These are the kids that need help with batting. These are the kids that need help with that. And go around so that you don't have that issue. So that you have, that triage effect of, work on the biggest deficiency first. And then move on from there. So I would even, in warm-ups, there's some kids that, need to get warmed up differently. So try to avoid doing everything with everybody at the same time, just because there are different skills. And then, like you said, those kids would get left behind, and these other kids are still bored. Well, hitting left field on both of them. So work with that. You need to find that and work with that. Work with your other coaches, on that.
Now you're saying without power and agility, like if you're going to work on a kid though at this age, not so much the agility without power. If they're not building muscle, is it just more or less the muscle memory that you're working on with them to?
It's all that neural impulse.
That's what they're gaining.
That's
the
what
power
gaining.
Is it's not true.
It's not
power.
muscle. Nope.
Okay.
It's my nerves, because what nerves do is nerves come down, and eventually a lot of times what will happen is they don't have to go to the brain, they just go to the nervous spinal cord and down, which is a quick system, which obviously it doesn't have to go all the way up and come all the way down. It's just quicker. But what it does is a nerve, it comes down and it comes into muscles, and it attaches to, from 10 to 1,000 different muscles, just depending on fine movements versus gross movements. So you can have one nerve for one muscle fiber, which would be like in your eyes, make really tiny, small movements. That's what they're for. Versus like your quads, one nerve might work with 1,000 different muscle fibers. So it's not as fine, but it doesn't need to be. It needs to use all that muscle at one time to make a big movement. So when you train that nervous system, in order to do something, muscles have to fire in a certain sequence. That's why a lot of times, people can't do a pull-up. It's because they're not being fired in a certain order. If that doesn't happen, the system doesn't happen. So when you work on, say, vertical jumps or running with that, it's the being able to move something quicker, whether it's you're jumping up so that muscle is going down and it's exploding quickly. So your nervous system has a better efficiency at firing those muscles in the correct order when it has to. It goes back to that coordination thing with the skipping and the jumping. It's able to do that and replicate that over and over and over again, and the better it is at that, the better the outcome or the product will be with that. That make sense?
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
So that's kind of how that goes with the guided discovery. So kind of I would say bulk of our organization is going to be in this kind of guided discovery. Next is learning exploration. So these are our 10 and 13-year-olds, Little League and Pony. You need to make sure that there's still a continued focus on the fundamental concepts of, fundamentally working your body. That 13, 12, 13, 14, when they start to hit puberty and they start to grow, the nervous system won't change much. Okay? What happens and why they get so awkward is their bones grow a lot faster than their tendons do and than their muscles do. So they aren't able to control things the same because they have longer limbs, they have longer levers, and things are weird on them now. They have their center of mass, can change, overnight. It's not uncommon for kids to grow 2 inches in a year. and that's huge change, just on being able to, squat right. So if you get those foundation skills done early and keep working on those through, especially particularly their first growth spurt, they'll keep those skills a lot better than if you just not do them and just focus mainly on specific stuff. Then they'll lose those, and then they're going to be out of wax, and then you got to kind of go back and kind of retrain them. So emphasis still needs to be on those skills, particularly motor control skills. There's a kid I worked with, and I hadn't seen him like in 6 months, and he was okay when he left, but then he grew 1.5 inches in about 6 months, and he came back, and I'm like, what happened? I mean, just could not move nearly like he could before, and it doesn't take long. But then, to get him back on track, it didn't take as long because we had set up stuff already. It was still a chore, but it worked. So when you are, going through particularly these older kids, a lot more work on balance. You'll find kids are horribly imbalanced right now. Needs to get work done. Balance is huge, and that's stability. If you have strong, stable core or foundation, you're able to do a lot more than if it's rocky. So it goes back to that inverted pyramid. Flip it so that your foundation is settled. So that's kind of a little bit with the developmental stages. Any more questions on those at all?
What was the 10 to 13? What was that called? What was that category called?
Fundamental learning explorations. So, and it's not, like I said, it's not unheard of to, like I said, there's the 15, 16-year-old that had their labrum tear surgery. They did not move well before their tear. One was, he was a pitcher and he was a quarterback, and he had an issue during the football season, and we actually think he tore it during the football season and just didn't really know it. But he can't pitch his junior year right now at all because he's having surgery next week. And that's going to affect him. His senior year is going to be next year. He's probably not going to pitch well. But at 15, 16 years old, should be no reason to have a labrum tear. And there's 2 of them. One is a golfer. So I mean, they happen. But both of them are, they didn't possess, and they train on the strength more than they train on stability. So their shoulders, they bench press over time, but they can't do a push-up. I have 15, 16-year-old kids that can't do 5 push-ups. Come on. Just because they can't control their body. So it is a big thing, and a lot of kids don't get it now because, growing up, we grew up completely different than our kids grow up now. So the experiences get lost. So, yeah. All right. So, next is, it kind of goes back to what I talked about before as far as the long-term athletic development for kids, or for the athletes, but shifting it more towards coaching now. So it's reflective coaching, and it's just a big cyclical cycle that just keeps going and going and going to modify yourself to become better. It will improve your coaching over time because you're going to be working with a system that you hopefully want to work. So hone your skills to work better. And instead of the definition phase, it's the evaluation. So evaluating practical coaching behaviors. What is that? It's how you coach. So coaches are all different. They coach different. What works for them won't work for this other coach. Won't work for that guy. So what works for you, I like to use the visual part, so I like to demonstrate a lot. And I make sure that they understand, and I'll do things right with them, in front of them, and try to mirror them to help them with that. So, figuring out what works for you to get through to whatever group of kids you have to work with is your coaching behavior, and whether it is good or bad, it needs to go towards the positive. So then next would be the implementation. So, and the same thing, implementation. Put those into practice and emphasize the behaviors that consistently give you a good. This worked well. I keep doing this. Check. I'm not going to do something that didn't work. Why would I do it again? It didn't work the first time. It didn't work the second time. I tried changing it. It still didn't work. Scrap it. Move on. And just keep going like that. And then that goes into practice. So altering the practice to reflect those changes. So, okay, it doesn't have to be a complete fail. I demonstrated this to the kids. 2 of them didn't get it. We tried it again a little bit differently. They still didn't get it. All right. So, but everybody else got it. So, okay, everybody else got that. Triage it, move on, work at it differently with those 2 kids until it clicks. So just changing those and practicing those and, reflecting on what worked, what didn't work, what can I change, do I need a different set of eyes in here? Somebody else may be able to do that better than you can. I know where my boundaries are as far as helping people, and if they need somebody else's help, whether it's a chiropractor, a PT, or whoever, massage, go. I won't do it. I can't, number one, but I wouldn't do it anyways because I don't know enough of what I'm doing to do it. I'm not going to be able to help them like somebody else can. So somebody else may need to do it, and that's fine. Once again, you have assistant coaches, you have other people to help you with that. So, like I said, probably not the most fun and enjoyable one, but it needs to lay that foundation to build upon, the next 3. So basically what this whole thing that I'm trying to talk to you about today is, it's a different system that isn't really well ingrained in what we have. We have a lot of the this and now mentality, and for the kids, it literally can kick their legs out from under them later in their young career and in life, just to get that gratification right now. So I don't see it being a positive to have great 2 or 3 years when you're 9 or 10, and then 14, 15 when you actually wanted to play baseball, you're stuck back down because you didn't develop right. Attempting to maximize opportunities for short term, it really does undermine the favorable long-term outcomes. So with that, so next time, any questions before we end it all?
Not really. I guess you're just trying to, what you're saying is, instead of working on pitching, movement, there's so much more that goes into it. Instead of standing in front of a plate,
kids,
swinging a bat, work on balance, work on all these other things that you can be doing that in the long term help that more than specifically keep trying to make that same throw until you can make that same throw.
Right. Even just take batting. There's a lot of balance with batting and weight shifting. If you're unable to shift your weight, you're not going to bat very well later on. So your body has to learn how to do that.
So this year what we're trying to work in is to do more or less an evaluation on the kids. So I'm thinking that this not only, one was for us to kind of look and balance the drills that we're doing. Is it hitting what we want to hit? Are they moving up properly? Are we seeing growth, basically?
Yep.
But in that also might be a good goal set versus the win-loss on the season, but to take a look at that number individually with the kids to say, here's their soft points, you do those drills, and that really is more or less what our goals should almost be at in the season versus an overall win-loss. Does that make sense? Or is that
it does.
Trying to say?
A lot of times too, kids are going to be in the same league for 2, sometimes 3 years. If you still have those and say, as far as, they came into minors and they can do this, and a little bit of this. Essentially it's a report card. By the time they left minors, look at everything that they accomplished, and they're ready for majors. That way too, it's that whole measurement, thing of, with them too. Are they progressing? Or are they just kind of hiding in the herd and just not progressing, but you don't know it because you haven't said anything and you haven't specifically measured anything. That's people I work with too. You know, biggest thing, if somebody wants to lose weight, I tell them, like, you need to take a measurement today. I don't care what it is. Circumference measurements, body fat measurements, take a picture. I don't care. You need to do something so that you can classify exactly where you're at now. And then in 1 month or however often you want to kind of retest yourself, same thing. Wear the same thing, measure in the same spot, look at your progress. Are you progressing or not? If you're not progressing, change something. With that kid, you know, if he's still doesn't have great movement with throwing, change it. You know, you have to change that for him, or figure out something else that he is progressing with throwing, or batting, something, whatever it is. So yeah, I think that would be, you know, it's more for them to become just better. And that's the thing, if they become better, the wins will come. It's going to happen, you know, because everybody else is going to be trying to do something different. Just stay, you know, on the path, stay the course, and, you know, the wins will come.
But on 4 hours a week, I mean, how much can you really expect?
Younger kids, a lot. They can progress very rapidly. They're at when it's a sponge for things that you say to them, it's a sponge for everything else too. They can catch on really fast, and it doesn't take that long. You can have dramatic differences within the same practice. It just depends on what it is.
Keeping manageable goals, though.
Yes, I mean, they need to be...
In 4 hours a week, you're not going to train an all-star pitcher.
Oh, exactly.
From nowhere.
Right.
Maybe you can tweak and get a good pitcher better.
The big thing I found is you got to motivate them to work on their own. Because we always tell them, we can't, you know, you're lucky if you get 4 hours. Some weeks I get an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I say, if this is all the practice that you're going to do, you're not going to get better.
Right.
And you kind of got to show them,
Yep.
you know, what they need to work on.
And talk to the kids too about, you know, their goals and, you know, where they want to be. Some kids may want to be a lot better than others, and that's fine. You know, hammer it in. We'll get into that later on with programming as far as their temperament and their mentality and how you have to motivate some kids differently than others. But there's, you know, this kid, you talk to him one way, he will rise to the stars. You talk to another kid the same way you talk to him, and you might as well talk to a wall, you know, because they don't grasp things the same, because they don't want the same thing. So we'll get into that in the programming, and, you know, how to get to the kids and how to talk to them and get them to do kind of what you want to do, but more or less on their terms, and how, you know, kind of play with them a little bit with that. So John Wooden had a quote. I have to read this, I'm sorry. It was great. He said, "When you improve a little each day, eventually big things occur. When you improve conditioning a little each day, eventually you get a big improvement in conditioning. Not tomorrow, not the next day, but eventually a big gain is made. Don't look for the big, quick improvement. Seek small improvements one day at a time. That's the only way it happens, and when it happens, it lasts." So, I mean, arguably probably one of the best college basketball coaches there was. He's great. That's what he did, and that's why his teams were successful. You know.
He had that other quote I like, "Think slow, act fast."
Yeah.
That was his.
Yep.
You got to slow it down in your mind. 'Cause
Exactly.
Jumping at it, but anyway.
So, yeah, next time is on methodology, and that is kind of different methods of teaching as far as kind of with skills. Different skills you need to teach differently, so kind of methods of kind of teaching. And then the kind of practice session organization, you know, as far as skill acquisition or whatever, and kind of how some of those will benefit you in different ways than others will. And they're a lot more situational, just knowing kind of different ones and, you know, what to do as far as like, you know, batting or hitting, you know, what's a better way to do it for kids. And it varies a little bit in their ages too, their age ranges, and you have to put that in perspective as well. So, all right, yeah, 45 minutes are quick.